Games with names. Sure, having the most talented players in the country is great, and winning the last 3 national championships is incredible for the Big Ten. But there's something about those 17 trophy games that truly give this conference its identity. Rooted in rich tradition, hard-nosed football, passionate fan bases, and fierce rivalries. Hello everyone, I'm Big Ten Digital host Andrew McDevitt. Today we're breaking down the 17 games with names across the conference, the trophy games. For the purpose of this video, we're only sticking with games that are Big Ten team versus Big Ten team. So honorable mention to the Cy-Hawk rivalry, the Apple Cup, Washington State, the Jules Shillelagh, USC and Notre Dame, and the Civil War giving out the Platypus Trophy, Oregon State. In this video, we're going to lay out from youngest to oldest all of the trophies presented across the Big Ten. It's not easy to create tradition and make a new trophy that fits in amongst those that have been handed out for hundreds of years. But Michigan and Northwestern set out to do just that with a tradition worth celebrating. George Henry Jewett II grew up in Ann Arbor in the 1870s and became a phenomenal student athlete at Ann Arbor High School, where he earned valedictorian. He went on to become the first African-American football player at the University of Michigan. He started fullback, halfback, and kicker for the Wolverines. But Jewett finished his medicine degree at Northwestern, where he became the first African-American player to play at that institution. After a successful playing career, he practiced medicine in Chicago before returning to Ann Arbor and starting a business. In 2021, Michigan and Northwestern adopted a trophy to honor the man that broke barriers in the Big Ten Conference. The George Jewett Trophy has gotten comfy in Ann Arbor to start its career. We turn to 2014, a trophy that literally comes from a fake Twitter account and a mascot. Very 2014. Here's the story of the $5 Bits of Broken Chair trophy. Nebraska's head football coach at the time was Bo Pelini. Naturally, in 2014, there was a fake Twitter account called Faux Pelini. Goldie the Gopher, Minnesota's mascot, tweeted at Faux Pelini, "How about a friendly wager for this weekend's game? Team that gets the most points gets a conference win. Seem fair? Harmless? Simple." Faux Pelini replies, "Okay, how about if we win, you give me $5. If you win, I get to smash a wooden chair over your back." Goldie then replied, "Just as long as we can turn that $5 or bits of broken chair into a trophy for next year's game." Well, sure enough, some Minnesota fans showed up to Lincoln with a handmade trophy and left with it that same weekend. It was on display at Minnesota for a year until the Huskers won it back. They celebrated with the trophy in 2015, but then leading up to 2016, there were rumors that the universities wanted to distance themselves from this trophy. The fans pushed back. The Huskers and Gophers fans loved their $5 Bits of Broken Chair trophy, so let them have it. Despite its quirkiness, the game has turned into not only a great rivalry, but a rivalry that does great work. To tie in a chair, now this game does charity. Since 2017, the $5 Bits of Broken Chair trophy game has raised over $175,000 for a pair of charities close to these two programs: Team Jack Foundation for Nebraska and the University of Minnesota Masonic Children's Hospital for the Gophers. A goofy Twitter interaction that turned into a trophy that helps raise money to save lives. Well done, Huskers fans. Well done, Gophers fans. Goldie, and even you, Faux Pelini. Older by 1 week than the $5 Bits of Broken Chair trophy is the Freedom Trophy between Nebraska and Wisconsin. With some Big Ten realignment, Nebraska first joined the conference in 2011. In 2014, both Nebraska and Wisconsin ended up in the same division, and the Freedom Trophy was born. It's meant to pay tribute to the men and women that serve to protect our freedoms here in the United States of America. Camp Randall is built on a Civil War training ground in Wisconsin. Nebraska's Memorial Stadium, dedicated to honor Nebraskans who have served. The Freedom Trophy shows Camp Randall on one half with Memorial Stadium on the other. All made in bronze. Looks like an enormous trophy. Don't often see the skill guys lifting this one. Mostly those trench bullies. Since its inception in 2014, the Freedom Trophy has spent a lot of time in Madison. The first 9 Freedom Trophy games went to the Badgers, but it's been in Lincoln since 2024 when the Huskers won 44-25. Black Friday tradition, the Heroes Trophy, up for grabs between the Iowa Hawkeyes and the Nebraska Cornhuskers. When Nebraska joined the Big Ten in 2011, the Heroes Trophy was created to celebrate the great people from both Nebraska and Iowa for their acts of heroism. Despite the trophy only being a decade and a half old, this rivalry dates back to 1891. Since 1903, it's only ever been played in Lincoln or Iowa City. To me, it means smash mouth football. You know where these two teams are going to be tough. Defense and be physical up front. They played 41 times as non-conference foes before the Huskers joined the conference 15 years ago. Since then, the Hawkeyes have claimed 11 of their 15 meetings. How about our first in-state rivalry? We're headed to the Prairie State for Northwestern and Illinois, two programs that have been buckling up their chin straps against one another since 1892. Separated by just over 150 miles, they've been playing for the Land of Lincoln Trophy since 2009. It's a model of the 16th President of the United States hat. His formative years and political career all blossoming in the state of Illinois. The Land of Lincoln Trophy weighs 28.5 pounds. It replaces the Sweet Sioux Tomahawk that the Illini and Wildcats played for from 1945 to 2008. That trophy was retired in 2008 out of respect for the Native American nations. Illinois took home 33 of 64 Tomahawks, but in the Land of Lincoln Trophy era, the Wildcats are 10-7 heading into 2026. Iowa, Wisconsin, the battle for the Heartland Trophy. Dubbed in 2004, the trophy was actually designed by artist and former Hawkeye football player Frank Strub. The bull on top of the trophy is supposed to symbolize the style of football these fans have come to expect when these two teams get together. The games have been competitive, and the series is deadlocked at 10 games apiece since 2004. All time, it's the Badgers that hold a slight advantage, 49, 48, and 2, going all the way back to their first win in 1894. Another one of those, most times you're seeing the linemen lift the Heartland Trophy, a big brass bull on top of a cedar base. I saw reports it weighs as much as 72 pounds. The battle for the Heartland. Huge trophy. Another one of those scenarios where the land-grant trophy is only slightly older than the Governor's Victory Bell. Both Penn State trophy games, this one, the Governor's Victory Bell between the Nittany Lions and the Minnesota Golden Gophers. The governors of Pennsylvania and Minnesota came up with the bell to commemorate the first ever meeting between these two programs in 1993. Unfortunately, what the Governor's Victory Bell is most known for is when Minnesota won in 2013 and accidentally celebrated too hard with the bell and it broke. Fortunately, the bell has since been repaired and the Nittany Lions lead the all-time series, 11-6. Some have called it the most beautiful trophy in sports. Others have called it a block of wood. I present to you the land-grant trophy. When Penn State joined the Big Ten in 1993, they opened up their season against their new rivals, Michigan State, but there was no real geographic rivalry. They'd played each other 10 times dating back to 1914, but nothing crazy stood out. The one thing they both do have is the distinction of being land-grant universities. Rivalry it is. The land-grant trophy game was born, and they started with a bang. 38-37, a barn burner in favor of Penn State. The trophy itself is hard to explain. It's big, it's mahogany, a couple of pictures, a couple of statues, a ton of plaques. I couldn't describe its shape, but it's something. It's more than 50 pounds. It's pretty tall. I don't think it's one you pass around much. The land-grant trophy, Spartans and Nittany Lions. We'll stay with the Spartans, but rewind the clock back to 1953, 40 years before our last trophy game. This one for Paul Bunyan's trophy, contested by Michigan State and the Michigan Wolverines. The trophy is a 4-foot-tall wooden statue of Paul Bunyan that stands on top of a wooden base. The lumberjack representing the state's long-standing lumber-producing tradition. Former Michigan coach Lloyd Carr said it's the ugliest trophy in college football, but when you don't have him, you miss him. There have been some iconic moments in these games that ended up with the team hoisting the Paul Bunyan Trophy, and these two programs are not the biggest fans of one another. That passion creates for a better rivalry game, and everyone outside of Coach Carr that plays in this rivalry can agree that the Paul Bunyan Trophy is a good one. You know what makes this rivalry so great? You can play for a trophy that is so obscure but means so much to both of these fan bases. An ancient metal spit bucket. Yup, a clash between the Indiana Hoosiers and the Michigan State Spartans. These two teams first played in 1922. Over the next 28 years, they only played 3 more times. But in the 1950s, the two began a rivalry series. The Spartans were rolling, coming off a big win over Notre Dame, and their student government purchased an antique spittoon dating back to a 19th century Michigan trading post in East Lansing that was said to have many visitors from Indiana. They sent a telegram to the Hoosiers student government to ask them in on the rivalry, and the old brass spittoon was born. It's a trophy that's seen a lot of spit and a lot of spit from East Lansing, but it's getting a lot more familiar with Bloomington in recent years. Our second appearance from the great Paul Bunyan on this list, this time it's between Minnesota and Wisconsin for Paul Bunyan's axe. The longest standing rivalry in Division I football, 134 times these two teams have faced off, dating back to 1890. The axe was introduced as the trophy in 1948 to this border battle. It replaced another iconic trophy in its own right, the slab of bacon. Unfortunately, the bacon disappeared in 1943. It was found in 1994 in a Camp Randall storage room cleanout. But that gave birth to Paul Bunyan's axe in 1948, and it's been a staple ever since. It signifies tough, hard-nosed football in any weather, especially in 2025, exactly what these two programs are all about. Paul Bunyan's axe between the Golden Gophers and Badgers, one of my personal favorites. With roots dating back to 1905, this trophy wasn't officially recognized until 1843, the Purdue Cannon between Illinois and Purdue. This rivalry game began in 1890, and 15 years later, a group of Purdue students brought the cannon to Champaign, planning to fire it off after the Boilermakers win. They saw their black and gold win that day, but never fired the cannon. Some Illinois fans and staff confiscated it before it could be set off. It sat in a barn in Illinois for almost 40 years. In 1943, after a 12-year gap in the rivalry, the Purdue Cannon was donated as a trophy to the winning school in this great rivalry. Illini and Boilermakers for the Purdue Cannon. By my count, it has to be the heaviest trophy on the list. It changes color every time it changes hands. The Battle of LA, the battle for the Victory Bell, UCLA versus USC. The 295-pound bell has a very interesting history. Originally, it stood atop Southern Pacific freight locomotive, but it was gifted to the UCLA Alumni Association. But following their season opener over Washington State in 1941, the Victory Bell was stolen. The search continued for over a year, but to no avail. Eventually, a picture of the bell surfaced in a USC magazine. A group of USC fraternity brothers took it. They agreed to return the bell as long as it could be played for as a trophy for the rivalry moving forward. And the Battle of the Victory Bell was born in 1942. One of the best uniform combos in college sports with one of the heaviest trophies in all of sports. The battle for the Victory Bell between the Bruins and Trojans. This trophy may just look like a pig on a pedestal, but it has quite the story behind it. Floyd of Rosedale, the trophy that has been on the line every time that Iowa and Minnesota have faced off since 1935. In 1934, Iowa got smoked by Minnesota, 48-12. But they thought their star player, a black player, Ozzie Simmons, was unfairly targeted with late hits throughout the game. The following year, Iowa's governor, Clyde Herring, said, "If the officials stand for any rough tactics like Minnesota used last year, I'm sure the crowd won't." Minnesota's governor, Floyd B. Olson, soon responded and assured there would be a clean game, and he also challenged Iowa's Governor Herring to a bet of a prize hog. Minnesota won in 1935 fair and square. 13-6. And Governor Herring personally delivered Governor Olson a hog from Rosedale Farms in Webster County, Iowa. That pig's name was Floyd, in honor of Governor Olson. Floyd of Rosedale, the trophy for Minnesota versus Iowa, was born. Floyd didn't last very long. The pig died in July of 1936, but Floyd of Rosedale lives on in trophy form every time the Hawkeyes and Golden Gophers kick off. The next two trophies are literally the exact same age, handed out on the final day of the regular season, November 21st, 1925. We'll start with Indiana versus Purdue for the Old Oaken Bucket. The alumni groups for both schools based in Chicago came up with the task to create a traveling trophy, and they deemed the Old Oaken Bucket taken from a well somewhere within the state would be symbolic and meaningful. Every year, the plan was to add a link of an I or a P, depending on who won. But in 1925, Indiana and Purdue played to a 0-0 tie. Hence the I and the P at the top of the handle. Since then, 63 P links have been added, 33 I links have been added. The Boilermakers and Hoosiers for the Old Oaken Bucket. This one made me laugh. If a turtle is on the line, Maryland has to be involved, right? Wrong. Illinois and Ohio State have been facing off since 1902. On November 1st, 1925, they opted to add a trophy to the mix, a live turtle named Illibuck, a turtle supposed to symbolize longevity. Illinois won the game in 1925, then Ohio State won in 1926, but the Buckeyes never got to celebrate with the live Illibuck because he passed away in April of 26. Instead, they got a wooden carved version of Illibuck. The scores of the game painted on the turtle shell each year. They've gone through 10 different iterations of the wood-carved Illibuck since the original passed away. The turtle has been in Columbus for quite some time. 10 straight wins for the Buckeyes heading into 2026. A wooden turtle on the line every time the Buckeyes and Illini get together, the Illibuck Trophy. Lastly, one of the oldest rivalries in college football, the oldest trophy in the Big Ten, and one of the oldest handed out across the entire country. It's the Little Brown Jug, contested by Michigan and Minnesota. These two teams have been going at it since 1892. The Jug first appeared in 1903. Michigan traveled to Minnesota and brought their own water jug with them. After a slugfest 6-6 tie, the Wolverines left that jug behind. When Minnesota staff found it, they wrote the score on it. And later, when Michigan called to get it back, Minnesota agreed as long as they would play for it moving forward. Now, there are more than 120 scores written all over the Little Brown Jug. The Wolverine and Golden Gophers competing for a piece of earthenware. The fact that it's almost 125 years old is what makes it so special. One of 5 regular season trophies that the Golden Gophers play for. If you're a Minnesota fan, let me know in the comments if you have a favorite. I certainly have my fair share of opinions, but one thing is for sure, all 17 of these rivalries with trophies are another reason why Big Ten football is the best. Thanks for watching the Big Ten Conference on YouTube. Be sure to comment down below your favorite trophy contested across the conference and subscribe for more content like this.